Well, there is talk about the Postal Service being taken private. You do know that. Not the worst idea I've ever heard.
What a terrible idea. When people could complain that the post office takes a loss, it's just so unbelievable to me. It's a public service. It's like one of the only federal public services that has overwhelming public support. The idea of taking it private. All right, I guess we're just paying for regular mail now, right? All right.
How are you? Thank you very much. So it's an honor to be with you. And we'll discuss a couple of points. We'll take some questions later if you'd like. I'm sure you might have one or two. I'd be shocked if you didn't. I'd be very impressed. But I'm honored to welcome one of the most accomplished business leaders of our time, the founder and CEO of SoftBank, everybody knows, Masayoshi Son. Masa runs one of the largest companies in Japan and among the most successful investment and technology companies anywhere in the world, one of the most successful investors.
I believe this is the guy who invested heavily in WeWork and lost a shitload of money
in the world. And we've just concluded a very productive meeting. And today I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum. And he's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election. And many other people are also coming in with tremendous amounts of money.
The problem with Trump is you cannot take anything this guy says at his word. So number one, I want to know how many jobs that actually translates to. Number two, I want to know if he was already planning on making this investment. And then he just, Trump is the kind of guy who will try to take credit for everything, try to self-aggrandize at every turn, try to make it about himself, will lie to no end to accomplish these goals. And so, yeah.
You probably noticed that a poll was just taken. It's business is literally in 39 years, there's been nothing like it. It's been the biggest increase. Small business owners gave it a 41% jump. It's the biggest jump that we've had in 39 years. And nobody's ever seen anything like it. And it's just, they're very optimistic. This historic investment is a monumental demonstration of confidence in America's future, and it will help ensure that artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and other industries of tomorrow.
Trump and Son announced a similar initiative in 2016 after Trump was elected president for the first time, with the Japanese firm agreeing to invest $50 billion in the United States with the aim of creating 50,000 jobs. Yeah, this was 8 years ago. It is not clear whether that effort fully paid off, as many of SoftBank's numerous startup investments in the US and beyond failed to pay off. And a 2019 report from Forbes found hard data on the ultimate impact difficult to come by. Axios, however, reports it largely met the marks, at least for a time. Today, SoftBank is a much smaller company than when Trump first took office nearly a decade ago, and according to Bloomberg News, only has $25 billion in cash on hand, raising serious questions about how Son and his firm will come up with the pledge money. A SoftBank representative did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Son joins the slew of tech titans announcing investments following Trump's electoral victory. Earlier this month, Amazon and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, each announced $1 million in contributions to Trump's inaugural fund, as have OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and the AI startup Perplexity.
Are built, created, and grown right here in the USA. One of the beautiful things about Masa is he's very much involved with emerging technology, probably knows it maybe better than almost anybody. So it's a great honor. And some of you remember after the 2016 election, also SoftBank committed to invest $50 billion in our country, and they did. And I'm very pleased to say that they kept that promise in every way, shape, and form. And now they're looking to do 100, and I've looked at their books. They do have the possibility of doing more. I'm going to ask them to do a little bit more, but first I'm going to ask.
Well, according to this Forbes article, they only have $25 billion cash on hand. So they would have to raise the rest of those funds with outside investments, I guess.
Him to speak, and just to say a few words. Masa, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited.
Is he a tiny little man, or is Trump just... I think Trump is the same height as me. I think he's 6'3", right? Trump height, 6'2". Oh, I'm taller than him. Let's go. Masayoshi height. I'm gonna guess if he's 6'2", then this guy must be like 5'6". It's giving me information on a Masayoshi that's a Twitch streamer. I'm gonna say this guy's 5'6". Okay.
I would really like to celebrate the great victory of President Trump. And my confidence level to the economy of the United States has tremendously increased with his victory. So because of that, I'm now excited to commit this $100 billion and 100,000 jobs into the United States. This is double of last time, as President Trump said. Because I say, oh, President Trump is a double down president. I'm going to have to double down, $100 billion and 100,000 jobs. This is, my confidence level, because that has doubled down. So I am truly excited to make this happen. And of course, business is important, technology is important. But one more thing I'm really hoping is that this President Trump would make the world, bring the world into peace again. That's my additional hope. And I think he will.
Oh my God, you guys.
So,
oh God.
Anyway, I'm excited to go, and we were discussing, and President Trump said, Masa, double down is not enough. Maybe, go for more, right?
It's interesting he says that when there was some reporting today that the Trump administration is thinking about taking some military action against Iran. Trump administration. Trump team mulls military options as Iran nuclear threat grows. A team of Donald Trump's collaborators is analyzing the possibility of military action against Iran in connection with its nuclear program, reports the Wall Street Journal. A team of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is considering the possibility of undertaking military action against Iran due to concerns that sanctions may not be enough to halt Iran's nuclear program. Iran is producing fissile material at a level that allows for rapid conversion into a weapon. Wall Street Journal reports that within a few days, Iran could refine this material to military grade. American intelligence has assessed that Tehran has sufficient enriched uranium reserves to produce more than 12 atomic bombs.
I'm going to ask him right now, would you make it $200 billion instead of that? He can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but he's now asking to do more. I think with your leadership, my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
That's good.
All right.
200. He'll make it happen. 200 billion investment.
He is a great negotiator.
He's a brilliant guy and did an unbelievable job. And the people
He just manhandled him like he was a child.
They have tremendous respect for him. So when he does what he just did, and I would be surprised if it didn't go to 2. When you say you'll try, I know you'll do it.
I will really try. And I need your support, though.
You'll have my support.
All right.
You'll have our country's support.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you, Masa, very much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Do
you.
you want to
Great
say hello
event.
to the people of Japan who are all watching?
Well, I'm sure our people in Japan are proud to make the partnership of U.S. and Japan be stronger. And I'm very excited to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. It's amazing. It's a great gentleman, a great leader, and a great investor. So to have that offer made, and we have so many companies coming in now that will be announcing, or that will announce themselves. We don't have to be with them to do it, but they'll be announcing. And as I said, small business optimism took a 41-point jump. 41 points. It went up 41 points. That's unheard of. And that's the biggest they think in recorded history, but they know at least a minimum of 39 years. So that's great. But on behalf of the American people, I want to
What is this metric that he's appealing to right now? What is he talking about?
thank Massa for his faith in what's happening with our country and what's happening with the world. There's a whole light over the entire world. Many people, some reporters, in speaking to them, they said, you know, it actually is true. A couple of them are not necessarily friends of mine, but they said it is actually true that there's a light shining over the world. We're trying to help very strongly in getting the hostages back, as you know, with Israel and the Middle East.
New NFIB survey, small business optimism jumps above 50-year average in November. This is from December 10th. It says the NFIB small business optimism index rose by 8 points in November to 101.7 after 34 months of remaining below the 50-year average of 98. An 8-point jump, not quite 41 points. Is he talking about, okay, hold on. The net percent of owners expecting the economy to improve rose 41 points. I see. From October to a net 36%, the highest since June 2020. Okay.
We're working very much on that. We're trying to get the war stopped, that horrible war that's going on in Ukraine, with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to, we've got a little progress. It's a tough one. It's a nasty one. It's nasty. People are being killed at levels that nobody's ever seen. You know, it's very level.
Well, that's certainly not true.
Level fields, and the only
I
thing
mean, it's bad, but I mean, come on.
that stops a bullet is a
World War I, World War II, you know. My good sir, you said you were going to end this conflict before you were even inaugurated. So what's the update on that, right?
body, a human body. And the number of soldiers that are being killed on both sides is astronomical. I've never seen anything like it. And rapidly, I get reports every week, and it's not even, you know, it's like just they're going down. Nobody's seen anything like it. It's a very flat surface, a very flat land. That's why it's great farming land. It's the breadbasket for the world, actually. But it's very flat, and there's nothing to stop a bullet but a body. There's no protection, no nothing, and it's what's happening there is far worse than people are reporting for both sides. So we're going to do our best, and we've been doing our best, and we'll see what happens. But
Zelensky just released numbers acknowledging the amount of casualties. Zelensky, Ukrainian casualties. So this was on December 8th, so this was about a week ago, and Zelensky says that 43,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed since Russia's full-scale invasion. Also said there were 370,000 injuries. He's claiming that 198,000 Russian soldiers have been killed and a further 550,000 were wounded.
since the election, I've been working every day to put the world at ease a little bit, to get rid of the wars. We had no wars when I left office, and now it's the whole...
Well, that's just bullshit. Africa and Syria and Yemen and Ukraine and Israel, there was constant rocket fire. I mean, give me a break. Come on.
whole world is blowing up. But there's great optimism, and you saw that by SoftBank. Starting on
Sudan, Burma. I mean, yeah, let's go.
day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen.
That's one thing that I'm really upset that Biden didn't do, is he didn't go full prosperity. And it's like, dude, you're the president, press the prosperity button and let's go, like, crank up the dial and let's go to full prosperity. And he just didn't do it. And ultimately, I think that's the thing that did him in 2024.
Just as we had
Didn't do
just a
full
short
prosperity.
time ago. We
Didn't
had
do
it
it.
in my term. We had the greatest economy that the world had seen. We were blowing away everybody. Our country was doubling up on China, doubling up on everybody, and everybody knows it. And then we had to slow it down with COVID.
Full frontal prosperity.
But
True.
unfortunately at the end. But even then, I gave it back with a substantial increase of the stock market, bigger than it was pre-COVID, so it was pretty amazing. Already preparations are underway to slash massive numbers of job-killing regulations, eliminating 10 old regulations for every new one. You put a new regulation on, you have to get rid of 10, and we'll be able to do it. And that was about the percentage we had. We cut more regulations than any president has ever cut by far, actually, by approximately 5 times. Some of those regulations, unfortunately, were put back on, but we'll catch up very quickly. We'll catch up with it. One of the things I'd like to ask the Biden administration, as you probably heard, there are 2 events that took place. We're talking about a friendly takeover, a friendly transition, as they like to say. This is a friendly transition, and it is, but there are 2 events that took place that I think are very terrible. One is that if people don't come back to work, come back into the office, they're going to be dismissed. And somebody in the Biden administration gave a 5-year waiver of that so that for 5 years, people don't have to come back into the office. It involved 49,000 people. For 5 years, they don't have to go. They just signed this thing. It's ridiculous. So it was like a gift to a union, and we're going to obviously be in court to stop it. The other thing is really terrible. We spent a tremendous amount of money on building the wall. The wall was designed specifically by the Border Patrol because it's very hard to climb. They need to have see-through. They need it to be steel because you can't cut. It's very powerful steel. It's very hard steel. It's a special type of steel, but very, very hard to cut. Inside the steel, as you know.
Are there different grades of steel that are, I would imagine, right? That would be more difficult to like to cut through.
We pour concrete, and that's a grade 10 concrete, which is a very strong concrete.
Pretty sure I've seen footage of people showing up to the border with like a drill and just drilling through the wall. Or what do you call it? What do you call it when it's like a flat blade that's a circle? Is that you don't call that a drill, do you? What do you call that?
As though you were
saw. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay.
Building about a 60-story building. It's very powerful concrete. They've made tremendous technology advances in the word concrete. Who would think that? But I know that from the construction industry. Today, what you can do with concrete is incredible. So we have a very strong concrete. And then we have a rebar. We put rebar inside the concrete, and the rebar likewise is very hard to cut. So it's a very expensive process, very expensive wall. And then we put a anti-climb plate on the top. You saw that. And I didn't see, it's a combination of steel, concrete, and as one of the folks just said, it really is virtually impenetrable.
Assurances from President Trump during his visit back in September in question as reports surface of smugglers cutting into the new border wall. This all according to the Washington Post. Good evening, I'm Vanessa Van Hefty. Our 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo live with how the president is responding to all that tonight. Laura.
Vanessa, and just hours ago, the president told White House reporters that smugglers cutting through these steel bollards is, quote, easily fixed. In September, President Trump toured the border wall in Otay Mesa, saying this.
If you think you're going to cut it with a blowtorch, that doesn't work because you hit concrete. And then if you think you're going to go through the concrete, that doesn't work because we have very powerful rebar inside.
But a new report from the Washington Post says otherwise. The 30-foot bollards made of steel and concrete are reportedly being cut by smuggling gangs in Mexico using a cordless saw fitted with specialized blades. The Post reports the smugglers are moving the single bollards out of the way, making room for an adult to get through. Border Patrol agents spoke to the Post anonymously, but said the bollards are still far superior to any other design. Tonight, the president saying this about the Post report.
I heard that we have a very powerful wall, but no matter how powerful, you can cut through anything.
The agents also reportedly said the smugglers are using lightweight ladders to go over the barriers. The breaches have reportedly happened in areas of the wall where electronic sensors haven't been installed, sensors that would help detect any vibrations. The agents told the Post the breaches are being quickly fixed.
Good times.
Didn't like the look of it, but then when I watched, we had people testing. We had mountain climbers actually testing. And they were not able to get over the anti-climb plate, so I said, all right, I guess we're going to put it on. That plate on top, which I never loved the look of it, but it works so unbelievably.
They did not hire mountain climbers, did they? I guess that kind of makes sense, right?
You have to do it. So we spent a lot of money on building it, and we have hundreds of miles that we put up. A lot of people don't realize, but we did 571 miles of wall. That's why we had such good records, in addition to the fact that Mexico helped us with their.
Number one, he didn't do 570 new miles of wall. I think it was a total like of 52 new miles, and then the rest were renovations on existing walls. But even if we accepted what he said at face value, like, okay, you did 570 miles of wall. Okay, but then what happened when Biden was president? He faced record levels of influx and border encounters. So, you know, if we go along with his lie and just grant him that, I think that was a little earthquake that we just experienced. If we just go along with his lie and say, okay, you built 700 miles of new wall, what good did it do, right?
With their military, they kept people out, and they were actually very good under the past leader. But now we ordered an additional 200 miles of wall. It's very expensive, and now it's about.
There's always tiny little earthquakes, you know, like, but there was one earthquake that was, I want to say, a year ago, and that was the only one that actually scared me. That shook the ground for a good 8 seconds. It was quite a bit.
Double the price of what it would have been 6 years ago. And the administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost.
Here's why parts of Arizona's border wall are being sold at an online auction. Sections of the Arizona border wall have been up for sale at a public auction on a government surplus company's website. The original listing by GovPlanet showed the starting bids at $5 for a December 18th auction. Listings have since been taken off the website.
Miles of fence used to build the border wall, but we're nowhere near the border. This is actually a government surplus auction site in Pinal County, and we've seen trucks coming, picking up this border wall and taking it away. On the GovPlanet website, the starting bid was listed at $5. The listings caused an uproar online.
$5 per steel beam? I feel like I should buy that, right? Like,
people wondering why it was being sold. This auction has since been taken down, but recent auctions already went through. And here in Pinal County, we've witnessed multiple trucks hauling away pieces of the wall. Border Patrol Council Vice President Art Del Cueto says agents are angry and it's a waste of government resources.
All of it pretty much can be utilized. They could put footing down, pick it back up and use it.
Dude, I'll tell you something about cops. They love what do you call it? Stained wood. They go nuts over that shit. You go into any cop's home, there's going to be some kind of stained wood sign. It's guaranteed.
Instead, what are they doing? They're auctioning it off. And now when you have to, start with the new administration wanting to rebuild it, what are we going to have to do? We're going to use more taxpayer funded money, which is insane to me.
The Department of Defense responded to our questions about the auction, saying they were required by Congress to either use, transfer, or donate unused border wall. Adding 40% was sold to GovPlanet in June of 2024, and the material currently being sold through the business no longer belongs to the U.S. government. We're hearing from lawmakers about what they think this auction means for border security as we head into the next administration. The full story will be on ABC.
So they're required by Congress to sell portions of like these beams, these border wall beams, if they're not being used. Okay.
Just double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build, but then after
substantially less. He said he was going to build a 2,000-mile border wall, and he built 52 miles of new wall.
it was built, I said, we can do some more, because it's sort of like water, people flow through, and that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. And that's really, that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with...
He seems to be confused. He seems to be thinking that Biden is selling this border wall, but it's a government surplus store, and the border wall portions no longer belong to the government.
People really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy at 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it cost us to build substantially. Can you believe it? So they make a deal with the United States to buy it for pennies, and then they call us and they say, do you want to buy it back? We'll sell it back to you for hundreds of dollars a foot. Hundreds of dollars.
I mean, that's just smart business, right? Yeah, exactly.
Pennies to hundreds of dollars a foot. And we can't let this take place. Now we're going to go. I spoke with the Attorney General of Texas. I spoke to
the art of the the art of the deal, bro.
I spoke to a lot of people, and hopefully they'll be able to stop. We're going to be, having a restraining order. But just think about how ridiculous it is. And this is just people that don't want this country to succeed. And this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This has to do with common sense. We won on common sense, and this is maybe one of the most egregious examples I've seen. So the people that are buying it or trying to buy it are trying to make a deal with us to sell it back at hundreds of times more than we paid. And this is all because the Democrats. So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the wall. We're going to use that to create a strong barrier. And it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well. And it's very expensive to do. And I'm asking Joe Biden to stop his people from giving it away. It's
not Biden, and again, they're required by Congress to sell those materials.
It's something that people can't even believe is happening. So hopefully Joe will be able to stop it. We'll soon unleash American energy, and this will be done at levels not seen before, issuing quick approvals for pipelines, drilling, and other infrastructure. It'll be clean energy, and we'll bring in the price of electricity, and we're going to bring it down fast. We're also going to create...
He promised to cut people's energy bills in half, so we're going to hold him to that, right?
Clean coal. Clean coal is something...
Clean coal, ladies and gentlemen.
That
the return of clean coal. How many years has it been since we've heard the phrase clean coal?
Has really taken over. We have coal that will last for over 1,000 years. We have so much coal, and with a process, it becomes clean coal. It's very powerful energy, unlike
Nope.
like wind. It's very, very powerful.
Not like wind. There is no process to turn coal into clean coal. It's not a thing.
And we're going to be doing a lot of clean coal for the people of West Virginia and others, Wyoming, so many states. We have great states. And they'll be happy to hear it. But we're going to be very much into clean coal. I don't ever use the word coal. I use the word clean coal. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for American families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. As you know, we're giving tax cuts if they do it here. We brought it down from 44%, 42%. In some cases, it was 39%. We brought it all the way down to 21%. And now we're bringing it down to 15%, but only if they make their product, their car, or whatever they're doing in the United States, in the U.S. And people are thrilled. I've had the smartest people on Wall Street call me. They said, where'd you get that idea? And it doesn't seem that complicated, right? But it's it's like the paperclip. Nobody ever thought of it. One guy thought of it. Everybody looked at it. They said, wow, that was a good idea. Why didn't I think of it? But we're bringing it down 6 more points, and that will put us really at the best level we've ever had for bringing in business. We've never been down to that level. We'll be among the lowest taxed states, and a lot of businesses are going to come in. Between that and our taxing and tariff policies, we're going to have business like nobody's ever seen in this country before. That's why we're having a 41-year record in optimism from small businesses and big businesses. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. Any business that invests $1 billion or more.
I believe his last round of tax cuts in 2017 resulted in a total of $900 extra for middle-income families in this country. So if we do 900 divided by, let's say people get paid every other week, so 26, right? Wait, is it 52 weeks a year? Yeah. So 900 divided by $26 or 26. That was $34 extra on your paycheck for middle income earners.
More in the United States will be eligible for fully expedited permits and approvals, including environmental approvals from the federal government. So when companies come in, if they're going to invest $1 billion or more, there'll be many of them, and they'll go into Detroit, and they'll go into a lot of places where we want them. You saw how well I did with the auto workers. We did unbelievably. You saw how well we did with the Teamsters, and also the non-union were record 98%, 97%. Nobody's ever got numbers like that because we're bringing business back.
What did he just claim? That he got 98% of the non-union vote? I don't even understand what he's claiming right there. That is...
And they're all coming back. We lost...
Even by Trump's standards, that is a pretty wild thing to say, right?
Over years of stupidity, I call it. I call it the years of stupidity, the decades of stupidity. Through the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk has been working very hard with various people, including Vivek. We'll going to eliminate hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud. And I can only tell you, I'll give you a little early report, they're finding things that you wouldn't even believe. So we're looking to save maybe $2 trillion. And it'll have no impact. Actually, it'll make life better, but it'll have no impact on people. It's not like we will never cut Social Security, things like that. It's just waste, fraud, and abuse. And we'll immediately restore the sovereign borders of the United States and stop illegal immigration, which is costing us, I believe, trillions of dollars a year. I think it's a cost that nobody's ever seen anything like.
I've never seen any study to demonstrate that illegal immigration costs us money. The only data I've ever seen show that even illegal immigrants, and I'm not saying that we should have unfettered illegal immigration in this country, but the only studies that I've ever seen, the only analyses done that I've ever seen have shown that they're a net boon, not just to our federal revenue. They pay like roughly $70 billion in taxes come from illegal immigrants every year, but they also have a combined $250 billion of spending power. So they're spending that money in businesses in their communities and, pouring money into the economy. They don't qualify for 99.9% of federal assistance programs. States can pass their own measures to expand social welfare programs to undocumented migrants, but I don't know how many states actually do that. No, California does in some cases. But yeah, the idea that they're a net drain on the economy is just not backed up by anything that I've ever seen.
Like it. I don't know. How can you be satisfied releasing prisoners into the United States? Think of this. You're releasing prisoners from jails all over the world.
Taylor from PKA was complaining about the impact that they have on wages and real estate prices, rental prices, these kinds of things. There's some evidence that if you have a massive influx of migrants into a community, that it can cause some upward mobility when it comes to some upward momentum when it comes to rental prices, but the impacts are marginal from everything that I've seen. We're talking about slight increases. The main reason why housing in this country and real estate prices have been so high in recent years is because, number one, we're actually still reeling from the housing market collapse in 2009. That stifled development. We're still experiencing the ripple effects of that. On top of that, there are a lot of states that pass a lot of unnecessary regulations disincentivizing development. So if you really want to cut rental prices, cut real estate prices, make housing more affordable, you want to incentivize more building. That's like the easiest, most simple way that you can do it.
Well, not just in South America. From the Congo, I would talk about it all the time. They're a very big sender of people. But from all over the world, they're sending prisoners out of their jails. Some of their jails are empty, and they will be empty soon if this ever continued. I spoke with the president of Mexico, and as you know, I spoke with Justin Trudeau of Canada, and we told them, it's not fair, not right. You can't let these people come into our country. And they understand they're very much on notice, and they're going to have to stop this from happening. They're going to have to stop it. We lose a lot of money to Mexico. We lose a lot of money to Canada, tremendous amount. We're subsidizing Canada. We're subsidizing Mexico. That can't go on. And I get along with the people of Mexico and Canada very well.
Just an outrageous claim to say that we're subsidizing Canada and Mexico. I just have no idea what he's even talking about when he says that.
But we can't let that happen. Why are we supporting and giving other countries hundreds of billions of dollars? It's not fair. It's not right. And the people of
Does anybody know what he's talking about when he says this? Like, the total U.S. trade with Canada and Mexico was a record $1.78 trillion in 2022. It's an increase of 27% over 2019 levels. What's the individual breakdown of like how much money goes? If somebody could help me find a source for like how much money goes where. Can't seem to find it right now. I'll keep looking.
But Mexico and Canada fully understand that.
How much money does
We've talked about it before.
Okay, so this is from VOA News. How much money does the U.S. give to Mexico? Its figures state the U.S. has given Mexico $234 million in assistance over the past 5 years, roughly $46.9 million per year. So he's not talking about, when he says that we're subsidizing Mexico, though. I think he's alluding to a trade deficit with Mexico. But he's talking about money pouring into their markets via our trade systems. In terms of direct assistance, it's $46.9 million per year. And the Mexican budget, I believe, is around $200 billion per year. What is Mexico's federal budget? $197 billion, roughly $200 billion is their federal budget.
But now we're doing something about it. We started, and then we had to fix the COVID situation, and that's what we did. But now we're doing it. We're doing it from the beginning. Howard will be largely in charge. We'll be working on it together. Howard's terrific. He's done a fantastic job, and he's really helped us a lot with transition. I think we have fantastic people coming in. So all of these policies will help us rapidly defeat inflation, create millions of new jobs, and put money in the pockets of the hardworking families of our country, pay off debt. We're going to be paying off a tremendous amount of debt. We're $36 trillion. You don't want to be there. And we're going to be using a lot of the money that we make. We're going to be opening up a lot of businesses are going to be pouring in because of our tax policy. And we're going to use the money that we made to pay off debt.
I don't know. I obviously don't know what he's basing this off of. When he passed the tax cuts in 2017, we saw a massive reduction in our tax revenue. I'll pull up the numbers. Hold on. And
to reduce taxes. We're going to further reduce taxes. If you remember when we reduced them last time, that brought a tremendous amount. We brought it down to 21%, and that was the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And nobody ever thought this would happen, but this is what's supposed to happen.
Pretty much everybody
we actually ended up taking in more revenue at 21 than we did at 40%, which was pretty amazing. But this will be the most exciting.
What did he just claim? Hold on.
This is what's supposed to happen. We actually ended up taking in more revenue at 21 than we did at 40%.
I'll let this keep going.
Which was pretty amazing. But this will be the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history, maybe of global history. The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be. And we hope we don't have any intervening problems, because things happen. Like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. You know, when I left, we had no wars. We had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords. We did things that nobody thought were even possible. But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars.
United States tax revenue from 1967 to October 2024. So he passed the tax cuts here. There actually was a slight increase. I was wrong about that. In total revenue. Got a little egg on my face there. Looks like I was wrong. I feel like I've read something recently about that, though. Hold on a second. I'm going to do more homework while I let this play.
They didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it. When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea. But they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. You know, it's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because probably maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relatively compared to the other cities, very little. But many of those cities are gone. Those beautiful towers, those beautiful buildings that they had are now laying on their sides. Destroyed, totally destroyed. The turrets and all of the magnificent 1,000-year-old, 2,000-year-old structures that were very strong are blown to smithereens You look at some of those cities and not one building standing. So, you know, when you say
I don't even know what he's talking about. What's he talking about?
take over the country, take over what? Take over what? That's 100-year rebuild. Take 100 years to rebuild it.
Is he talking about Ukraine right now? What is he talking about?
You can never have it the way it was. What a shame. It should have never happened. It would have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened.
Gaza?
Nor would Israel have happened with the attack on
He's talking
Israel.
about Ukraine. Okay.
So we're inheriting big challenges at home and all over the world. Again, we had no wars. We had no problems. We had no inflation.
Okay, this is what a fact check says here. Trump's take back in September 2017, before Congress had even taken up his promised tax changes. Trump promised it will be revenue neutral when you add growth because we're going to have magnificent growth. The government's nonpartisan budget experts, however, were less optimistic. Late that year, Trump signed the tax legislation into law in 2018. The CBO estimated that on a conventional basis, the law would increase deficits by about 1.8 trillion over 10 years, or by about 2.25 trillion, including interest on the additional debt. Expected economic growth from the tax cuts would offset some of that, CBO said, but even with that growth, the law would increase deficits by about 1.3 trillion. Nonetheless, in August 2018, Trump's Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin insisted that due to a stimulation of growth, this tax plan will not only pay for itself, but in fact create additional revenue for the government. It's technically true that corporate revenues rose a few years after the passage of the TCJA, as is clear from a graph of government revenue from taxes on corporate income provided by the Federal Reserve. As the data show, corporate tax revenues dropped in 2018, the first year of the TCJA, and were lower still by the first quarter of 2020. The question is whether the subsequent rise through the second quarter of this year was due to the TCJA, and whether revenues would have risen even more had the TCJA tax cuts not been enacted. This seemingly simple question is amazingly hard to answer. Jeffrey Hoops, a professor at the University of North Carolina Business School and research director of the UNC Tax Center. The steady rise in revenues didn't begin until the third quarter of 2020, which coincides with the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. The problem, of course, is that more than the TCJA happened. I don't know why that's so hard to say. TCJA. Congress dumped trillions of dollars into the economy in so-called COVID recovery, and that really helped corporate profits and therefore corporate tax revenue for the U.S. Treasury. The question is not whether we did better or worse afterwards, but rather how much the TCJA actually cost us. The answer is it likely cost us a lot. In other words, that sharply pointing up graph would have been even steeper. Some estimates are that the TCJA decreased corporate tax revenue by something like 40%. So in this fact check at factcheck.org, they're alleging that this big spike as a result of this massive infusion of stimulus from the government during COVID would have actually been a steeper rise had the tax cuts not gone into effect. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget counters that once corporate tax revenue is adjusted for the recent surge in inflation, it is almost identical to where the CBO projected it would be after the TCJA was enacted. In other words, on pace to be more than $1 trillion lower over 10 years. Daniel Bunn, president and CEO of the Tax Foundation, told us via email that without accounting for inflation, revenues are higher than expected. How much of that is caused by TCJA? That's really unclear, and we may never have a full accounting of that, because of the trade war, pandemic, inflation, etc., all contributed to the trend. There were also significant capital gains realizations that were partially driven by strong market and perhaps some investors who were concerned that the capital gains rate would go up during the Biden administration. The jury is out on how much of the revenue increase the TCJA caused. Bunn also looked at revenue adjusted for inflation. He said that it shows revenues are below what was projected by CBO in 2017. We're raising record amounts of revenue, but you can't associate all of that with TCJA, given that the inflation adjustment shows we're raising less than projected in 2017. The tax cut did increase the deficit by reducing revenues. Even if spending had remained constant, which it didn't, the tax reforms would have increased the deficit. But it's also true that revenues are outperforming CBO's initial estimates of their impact, so the deficit impact is smaller than what it would have been otherwise. U.S. deficit by year, because the claim he's making is that the tax cuts paid for themselves. So because He slashed the corporate tax rate down to, I think, 21%. The theory that he was espousing at the time was essentially Reagan's theory of economics, which is trickle-down economics. If you cut taxes for the wealthy individuals, corporations, companies, then that money would trickle down. So it would spur so much economic growth that the U.S. government would collect so much revenues that it would offset the cost of the tax cuts themselves. That does not appear to have happened, which is an enormous shock. I realize that. When we take a look at our deficit, here we have 2017 when Trump was inaugurated. They passed the tax cuts. Tax cuts go into effect, and the deficit begins to balloon once more. It falls off of a cliff because of COVID, but it was already on a downward trajectory. So it does not appear as though the tax cuts paid for themselves.
We had no inflation. We had it less than 1%. Perfect number. And then we had inflation, the likes of which I don't believe the country's ever seen inflation like that. They say 38 years. I don't know. I think it's probably ever, but we're going to take care of all of it. We're going to get the prices down by energy. The energy is going to come in. We have more energy than anybody else. We're going to use it. We don't have to buy energy from Venezuela when we have 50 times more than they do. It's just insane what we're doing. So we will not rest until...
Unclear what he's referring to. We're currently drilling record levels of oil right now under Biden, right? When we look at inflation rates over the years, not that inflation wasn't bad in 2022 or that people didn't feel the sting, they did, but it jumped up to as high as 13.3% in 1979, which was a major show. I'm not sure if this is when, like, what year were people having to like ration gasoline? There was one year in the United States where we were running so low on gasoline and the prices were so high that we had to make it so that if you were born on an odd day, you would go on like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to fill your tank. And if you were born on an even day, you would go on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. What year did people... 1979. Yeah, that was the year. So 1979 sucked, boys and girls. 13.3%. It's pretty gnarly. And we didn't experience, we experienced some uncomfortable inflation in 2007. Got up to 4%, 4.1%. And then, of course, it jumped up to 7% in 2021. I think a little bit higher than 20%, than 7% at certain points throughout that year, but it averaged out to 7%. And then if we go back even further, 1946, 18% in the post-war era in the United States. Jesus Christ. So inflation was, not great in 2021. It was the worst since 1979, or rather 1981, but not record inflation.
Until America is richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. And we have a big head start. Last time we didn't, and last time we didn't know the people, we didn't know a lot of things, but by the time we got it up and going, it was incredible. Again, we built the greatest economy in history for that period of time, and we'll do it again, I believe substantially more so, because we understand, number one, the people of Washington. I know them. I didn't know any of them virtually. I relied on other people for recommendations. Some were very good recommendations. We had some great people. Bob Lighthizer, I thought was great. We had a lot of great people, and but we had some people that I wouldn't have used in retrospect. And now I know them better than anybody, better than they know themselves. So once again, I'd like to thank Massa for what he's done with that investment, which will end up being $200 billion, I believe. But I just want to thank him. He's just an outstanding man. When you have that kind of brain power wanting to invest in this country, and that's money that he can't invest elsewhere. So that's a big investment, but makes me feel very good. Makes me feel that we're absolutely on the right track. So thank you to Massa, and we'll take a couple of questions. Yeah, please. Jeff.
Mr. President, you mentioned divorce. Can you tell us what you said to Prime Minister Netanyahu in your call on Saturday?
Yeah.
And have you spoken to President Putin since your election?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the Putin question, but I will comment on Bibi. We had a very good talk. We discussed what is going to happen, and I'll be very available on January 20th, and we'll see. As you know, I gave warning that if these hostages aren't back home by that date, all hell's going to break out, and very strong. But we generally just discussed, I asked him, where are things? Mike Waltz they're doing a great job, by the way. Everybody is very happy. I think he's doing a fantastic job. but he was very much involved in the call. But it was a recap call more than anything else.
President Trump, how do you plan to stop the ban on TikTok next month?
Who?
How do you plan to stop the ban on TikTok next month?
We'll take a look at TikTok. You know, I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok had something to do with that. Now,
I don't know where he's getting those numbers. Gen Z to Trump by 34 points. Hold on. What's the best data that we have at this point? Like, I don't want to look at the exit polls that came out the day of the election or the day after. Does anybody know, like, exit polls 2024? Exit polls can be very, they can be very noisy. Very, very noisy, especially in the early days. I would be very surprised if he won Gen Z. I don't think he won them outright. There was a shift towards Trump in both Gen Z young men and women. I believe that's certainly true. I don't know if I've seen any exit polls to demonstrate that he won. These are some exit polls that were last updated a week ago. Where's the age brackets here? 18 to 29, 54% for Kamala, 43% for Trump. I mean, those are still like horrible numbers for young people, but the idea that he won young people by 34 points, no, I have no idea what he's talking about. It does look like he won Gen Z young men, 18 to 29. In that age bracket, he won by 1 point, 49% to 48%. I blame Aiden Ross and Joe Rogan and XQC. I don't know how much XQC had to do with it.
Joe Rogan did, and
oh, there it is. Right.
Some of the other people that were recommended by my son Barron, he knew names. I said, who is that? Tell me, who's that? Dad, you got to be kidding. I can't believe you don't know. And I did those
didn't XQC bet like $800,000 against him?
Interviews, and it was actually...
That's almost certainly Destiny's fault.
Actually sort of cute, if you want to know the truth, but we did them, and that had an impact. But TikTok had an impact, and so we're taking a look at it. But, you know, we won youth. Republicans are always 30 points down in youth. I don't know why, but we ended up finishing. There was one poll that showed us down about 30. We were 35 or 36 points up with young people. So I have a little bit of a warm spot in my heart, I'll be honest. Yes, President.
Are you entertaining the idea of preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities?
Against who?
Against Iran's nuclear
Well, I
facilities?
can't tell you that.
Would you?
I mean, it's a wonderful question, but am I going to do preemptive strikes? Why would I say that? Can you imagine if I said yes or no? You'd say, that was strange that he answered that way. Am I going to do preemptive strikes on Iran? Is that a serious question? How could I answer a question like that? Say it?
Would you be in support of Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear
How could I
facilities?
tell you a thing like that now? It's just so, you don't talk about that before something may or may...
In fairness to Trump, it is a stupid question. If you say, yes, I'm in favor of preemptive strikes, it's not really preemptive anymore, is it?
May not happen, you know, just,
Will
I don't want
President,
to insult you. I just think it's just not something that I would ever answer having to do with there or any other place in the world.
President Trump.
President
Trump.
Time magazine interview. Can I ask, just clearly, do you believe there's a connection between vaccines and autism? Do you believe there's a link?
Well, I don't look. Right now, you have some very brilliant people looking at it. I had dinner the other night with the head of Pfizer, the head of Eli Lilly, and RFK, as you know, and Oz. And we had, and other people within the administration that are involved in the medical. And we're looking to find out, you know, if you look at autism, so 30 years ago I've heard numbers of like 1 in 200,000, 1 in 100,000. And now I'm hearing numbers of 1 in 100. So something's wrong. There's something wrong.
No, they treat us, number one, they treat autism differently. So now it's treated like a spectrum. And so that spectrum encompasses a lot more people. And so somebody who displayed maybe the exact same symptoms 50 years ago wouldn't have gotten any kind of diagnosis. And number two, we just, you know, there's greater access to healthcare at this point. And so more people are seeing doctors. And so there's like very logical, rational reasons why the number of autism diagnoses have gone up. And to date, there's never been any substantive link established between vaccines and autism. It's just pure speculation. Somebody just, you know, it's one of these correlation equals causation things. So the battery of inoculations of vaccinations that kids get are bigger now, because we've managed to squash like 100 epidemics. And so, you know, people saw a line on a graph over here, like number of vaccines that kids get. And then people saw a line over here, number of autism diagnoses every year. And both of these lines went up at the same time. And then it was probably some new age hippie in Guerneville in Northern California that started this thing. And then they put out like a newsletter to their hippie friends or whatever. And then it literally probably started that way. And then of course, like the internet comes around, and now, you know, you can have your little hippie town squares on the internet. And then magically in 2020, you know, the anti-vax new age hippie, you know, it migrated from these goddamn hippies to, like Rogan listeners and vaccine skeptics, and now it's like a right-wing coded thing.
And we're going to find out about it.
What about the president?
What's her name? Nicole Shanahan, I think it's her name. It was RFK's chosen running mate for his presidential bid. She's got an interesting story. She got together with a tech billionaire and then cheated on that tech billionaire with another tech billionaire at a ayahuasca retreat or something like that. Divorced the first tech billionaire, got a load of money in that settlement, and then cheated on the second tech billionaire with a third tech billionaire who was even richer, who was like a Google co-founder or whatever. And then she hired some fancy lawyers that talked their way out of the prenup agreement, and she got over $1 billion in her second divorce settlement. She had a kid, the kid had autism, and then she became this new age hippie bullshit. And so then she became obsessed with vaccines causing autism. And then, you know, she linked up with RFK and Guerneville. Like, I love Guerneville. I just want to say it's beautiful. I love Guerneville, but it's just it's a goddamn hotbed of hippies. You will never find a more hippie town. It is the hippiest town in Northern California. It's beautiful. It really is. There's lush green trees all over the place. There's a bunch of eucalyptus trees up in Guerneville, you know, but if you go downtown, it's like, you know, it's very, very hippie. That's all I'm saying.
Can I follow up on Robert Kennedy? He's on the Hill today. He's meeting with senators. What do you say to people who are worried that his views on vaccines will translate into policies that will make their kids less safe?
No, I think he's going to be much less radical than you would think. I think he's got a very open mind, or I wouldn't have put him there. He's going to be very much less radical. But there are problems. I mean, we don't.
My prediction is that RFK, I feel like he's going to be the first one to go, because he's not going to be able to. He just says sometimes in interviews, you know what I mean? And he's going to end up saying some that the president is going to, the president elect rather, he's going to be forced to like distance himself from the that RFK says. Like, he's gonna pop off. He cannot help himself. And I feel like he's gonna be the first one to go. As Tulsi, we'll see about that. I mean, she still has to get confirmed. I mean, RFK still has to get confirmed. That's an open question right there. It's possible that this Congress goes along with it, that the Republicans don't constrain Trump, that they decide to grant him broad deference when it comes to his cabinet picks. And it's possible that RFK gets through, but there's some question marks there. Same thing with Hegseth.
Don't do as well as a lot of other nations, and those nations use nothing. And we're going to find out what those problems are. And another thing that came up, the dinner was fascinating because I had Bobby and I had, again, the head of Pfizer. You know who that is. He's a highly respected man who has run an incredible company. Likewise with Lilly, the top two people. And we had the head of the industry also. So all companies were represented. And I said, let's have it out now a little bit. And you know what came out of that meeting is that we're paying far too much, because we're paying much more than other countries. And we have laws that make it impossible to reduce. And we have a thing called the middleman, you know, the middleman.
Actually, speaking of laws, a little known provision in the IRA negotiated by President Big Dick Joe Biden allowed Medicare to negotiate the prices of the top 10 selling drugs on the market. He did that. So if you want to do that, call Joe Biden. Ask him how he did it.
And right, the horrible middleman that makes more money, frankly, than the drug companies, and they don't do anything except
Get him
they're
on
a
the
middleman.
phone.
We're going to knock out the middleman. I'm going to be very unpopular after that statement.
Mr. President,
I don't know who these middlemen are, but they are rich as hell. And we're going to knock out the middlemen. We're going to get drug costs down at levels that nobody has ever seen before. And that really, I tell you, we spent more time talking about that with
My good sir, I will hold you to that. Hey, if he gets it done, all the better. Great.
Bobby and with the executives and Oz, all of them. We spent more time talking about that than anything else.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Thanks, President Trump. What about the polio vaccine?
Well, I'm a big believer in it, and I think everything should be looked at, but I'm a big believer in the polio vaccine, the Salk vaccine.
Do you think
McConnell came out with a statement a couple days ago, very pointed criticism at RFK. You know, McConnell had polio as a kid, was, you know, basically saved from paralysis due to medical advancements at the time. And so he's very big on the polio vaccine. And he said something a few days ago with respect to that. Let me look up the actual quote. Mitch McConnell warns RFK Jr. against effort to undermine polio vaccines. Anyone seeking the Senate's consent to serve in the incoming administration would do well to steer clear of even the appearance of association with such efforts. The polio vaccine has saved millions of lives and held out the promise of eradicating a terrible disease. Efforts to undermine public confidence in proven cures are not just uninformed, they're dangerous.
think schools should mandate vaccines? Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person. So,
oh my God.
You know, I was against mandates. Mostly Democrat governors did the mandates.
Looks like diphtheria is back on the menu, boys. Let's go.
Mandates, and they did a very poor thing. It was, you know, in retrospect, they made a big mistake having to do with the education of children. You know, they lost like a year or 2 years of their lives. The mandate was a bad thing. I was against the mandate.
So is that something you'd want to?
Yes, please.
It's like Nick Merckx. Nick Merckx said he didn't have his kid get a single vaccine. Nick Merckx's child has not had a single vaccine.
Do you expect Ron DeSantis to appoint Laura Trump to Senator Marco Rubio's seat?
No, I don't. I probably don't, but I don't know.
Laura Trump is just watching this and bawling right now. Did he just shit on her?
Having to do with the education of children. You know, they lost like a year or 2 years of their lives. The mandate was a bad thing. I was against the mandate.
So is that something you'd want to?
Yes, please.
Do you expect Ron DeSantis to appoint Laura Trump to Senator Marco Rubio's seat?
No, I don't.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Poor Laura. He knows she's a fucking idiot. That's what this is. She's a goddamn dummy and everybody knows it. She's been publicly jockeying for that empty Senate seat that Marco Rubio is going to leave. And he's like, nah, I don't think he's going to do that.
I probably don't, but I don't know. Ron's doing a good job. That's his choice. Nothing to do with me. Laura's unbelievable. I mean, she
all in the YouTube chat. Why don't you just listen instead of doing a Destiny impersonation? If you're white and you cover politics and alternative media space from a left-wing perspective, you're a Destiny clone. You can't talk about politics from a left-wing perspective on the internet without people calling you a goddamn Destiny clone. All due respect to Destiny, I've been interested in politics for my entire adult life. I'm 41 years old, okay? I've had many opinions that predate the rise of Destiny Stephen Bennell II.
She was incredible. The job she did at the RNC as chairman, along with Michael Whatley, the combination, but I can just speak for Laura. She is so highly respected by women. I mean, even her workout routines are through the roof. She lifts 150 pounds. I don't know how the hell she does it. She's a bad example for men and women sports, because I wouldn't be able to beat her, I don't believe. I'd try like hell. But no, she's an incredible woman. And, you know, it's funny, people oftentimes talk about nepotism. I never had, when I put her there, people said, how did you get her to do it? You know, she could have run for the Senate in North Carolina. Ted Budd would be the first to say, and he wouldn't have run. Nobody would have run. And she just said, no, I want to really focus on my children. When the election, and my family, she has a great family. When the election started getting closer, I asked her, would she go to Washington and work on the, as chairman of the committee along with Michael Watley. And they did such an unbelievable job, especially on cheating. They stopped it, or at least they stymied it. Too big to rig. And we won in a landslide. We won tremendously. She did an amazing job. Now Ron is going to have to make, because Marco has been really a star already. And we haven't started, but, we see signs of from some people, or very early, we see signs of stardom, and Marco has done incredibly. He's sort of born for it. It was such an easy decision. The Marco decision was such an easy, but he leaves a vacancy in Florida, and Ron's going to have to make that decision, and he'll make the right decision. I also know that Laura's got so many other things. I mean, she's got so many other things. People want her to be on television. They want to give her contracts. Her predominant thought is our country and her family. Those are her thoughts. But she's got so many other things that she's talking about.
Mr. President.
He'll make the right decision.
Mr. President.
Should senators who oppose your nominees, your cabinet nominees, should they be primary?
If they are unreasonable, I'll give you a different answer, an answer that you'll be shocked to hear. If they're unreasonable, if they're opposing somebody for political reasons or stupid reasons, I would say has nothing to do with me. I would say they probably would be primaried. But if they're reasonable, fair, and really disagree with something or somebody, I could see that happening.
This is one of the reasons why I'm kind of bullish on probably all of Trump's cabinet picks getting pushed through the Senate, because the threat of being primaried is real. Elon Musk is reportedly telling people, not so subtly, not so secretly, and it's being leaked to the press, that he's willing to spend billions of dollars to primary Republicans who do not agree to his cabinet picks and do not sign off on his legislation. And I could see some senators, like Murkowski, good luck primarying her in Alaska, right? And then Collins in Maine, I don't know if a primary is very smart in a blue state like Maine. I support trying to primary Collins, for example. But then you have other senators that are very popular in their states. And so he's not going to be able to, it's not like he can just snap his finger and just primary anybody he wants. There are obstacles. You can't, money can't buy everything. It can buy a lot of things. It can help, but just the threat of being primaried for not confirming his picks, I think is going to be a powerful motivating agent for many Republicans serving in the Senate. So, we'll see what happens. I haven't seen enough signs yet to say that any of them are going to get rejected. Like even Hegseth seems to have a path here. So,
but I do believe that if they're I think we have great people. I think we have a great group of people. Pam has been unbelievably received. You take a look, Pam Bondi. So many have been just unbelievably received. I think Pete Hegseth is.
How is that legal? Campaign finance needs massive reforms. Citizens United. That's how it's legal. You can funnel millions and billions of dollars through PACs. Like you can't individually donate more than I think $3,500 to a campaign. But if you're wealthy and you have connections, just form a PAC and then you can funnel hundreds of millions of dollars into campaigns. Since Citizen United, the amount of money that's spent on campaigns every year has skyrocketed. I wonder if I can find a chart.
Making tremendous strides over the last week. He's going to be great. Look, he went to Princeton, he went to Harvard, he was a great student there, but he really was, from the first day I met him, all he wanted to talk about was military. He's just a military guy. I think it's a natural. This was my idea. And
first of all, when was the Citizens United decision? When was the Citizens United decision? It was in 2010. So you can see, there was already like an upward trajectory, but it really exploded in 2020. It was already on the ups, on the up and ups, even before Citizens United, but it exploded in 2020 to the extent that in 2024 there was $15.5 billion spent on congressional races and the presidency. That's so much money every election cycle.
Pete Hegseth gave up a lot because he was going big places in Fox, big places, a lot of money. And he didn't even hesitate. When I said, do you want to do this? He said, absolutely. I said, you know, if it doesn't work out, you'll never have the opportunity that you have right now in terms of the world of entertainment or business.
I got a cryptic message in my YouTube chat from Dominic Scipion who says, enjoy life while you can. Either a death threat or an ominous warning of the incoming Trump administration. It's one of the two.
Whatever you want to call it. You'll never have that opportunity again. In
Say
fact,
it to my
could be
face.
Just the opposite.
You won't.
Because it's nasty out there. He said, I don't care. I have to do it for my country. He gave up a tremendous amount. If this didn't work, it would be a tragedy. Because, but that's what he loves. He loves the military. I never talked to him about anything else. He'd talk about the military. He'd come to see me about a soldier that was unfairly treated, and could I help? That's the only thing I virtually ever talked to him about. And I always remembered it. I've seen him many times, and I don't think I've ever had a subject on anything other than military with him. That's where his love is. And he didn't say, well, I'd like to think about it. I'd like to talk to my family. He said, not even a contest. And, you know, he was going through the roof over there. He was doing great. They have the #1 show that Saturday and Sunday with Will and Rachel. That was great chemistry.
Okay, Dominic.
And,
all right, buddy.
If this didn't work out for him, it would be actually sort of tragic. Yeah.
Would you consider pardoning Eric Adams?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, you know, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded. They see you're all stars, and they say, I want to upgrade that person from NBC. I'm going to upgrade him. And that would mean you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I don't know. Somehow,
I hope not.
I mean, I'd have to see it because I don't know the facts. I think he was treated, you know, it's very interesting when he essentially...
If you don't know the facts, then why are you saying he was treated unfairly? I just... Everything's so stupid.
Went against what was happening with the migrants coming in. And, you know, he made some pretty strong statements like, this is not sustainable. I said, you know what? He'll be indicted soon.
I feel like there's a non-zero chance that Mayor Adams changes his political party to Republican. I feel like there's a decent chance that's going to happen.
And I said it not as a prediction, a little bit lightheartedly, but I said it. I said, he's going to be indicted. And a few months later, he got indicted. So, yeah, I would certainly look at it.
They indicted me!
Yes.
Mr. President, can I ask you a question about the drones?
Now, I've been like largely off Twitter for like the last 5 days. It's been amazing, by the way. Is the drone thing just taking Twitter by storm? Like, is Twitter just going nuts with the drone thing right now? I assume so, right? It's ripe for conspiracy and all the crazy shit. It's the Iranians, it's aliens. And then, I don't know, I saw some people talking about how it's probably just planes, right? Yeah. It's just literally just a plane flying above.
Well, you know, we had 5,000 troops along the border, and I asked a couple of generals, so we have an army of 250,000 in Syria, and you had an army of 400,000. They have many more people than that. Turkey is a major force, by the way, and Erdogan is somebody I got along with great, but he has a major military force, and his has not been worn out with war. It hasn't been worn out with all of the other things. I mean, he's built a very strong, powerful army. And so we have 5,000 soldiers in between a 5 million person army and a 250,000 person army. And I asked the general, what do you think of that situation? He said, they'll be wiped out immediately. And I moved them out and I took a lot of heat. And you know what happened? Nothing.
What is he claiming that the Chinese, there were Chinese air balloons that were flying above the United States on Donald Trump's watch. He didn't shoot them out of the sky. I don't think any action was taken. Remember when the Chinese balloon became a story in like 2022 or something like that? And right-wingers were accusing Biden of being soft and what he didn't want to shoot it down because there was like a very low chance, but still a chance nonetheless that the debris could fall and damage buildings and hurt someone or whatever. And then the right-wingers jumped all over Biden. And then there was a report that came out very shortly after that showed that there were 3 Chinese spy balloons that were flying above the United States on Donald Trump's watch.
I saved a lot of lives. Now we have 900. They put some back, but 900 if you're talking about two, now one of the sides has been essentially wiped out, but nobody knows who the other side is. But I do. You know who it is? Turkey. Okay? Turkey's the one behind it. He's a very smart guy. They've wanted it for thousands of years, and he got it. And those people that went in are controlled by Turkey. And that's okay. It's another way to fight.
He's talking about Syria. Wasn't the question about the drones? Why is he talking about Syria right now?
But no, I don't think that I want to have our soldiers killed. But I don't think that will happen now anyway, because the one side's been decimated.
Mr. President, I want to ask you a question about the drones.
The drones concerned about more unrest in that region, or do you think it will calm?
Well, nobody knows what the final outcome is going to be in the region. You know, nobody knows who really the final. I believe it's Turkey, and I think Turkey is very smart. He's a very smart guy, and he's very tough. But Turkey did an unfriendly takeover without a lot of lives being lost. I can say that Assad was a butcher. What he did to children. You remember I attacked him with the 58.
Uh-oh. Don't tell Tulsi. Somebody guard Tulsi's ears. Put your hands up to her ears.
8 missiles. Unbelievable missiles coming from ships 700 miles away, and every one of them hit their target. But I did that. That was the red line in the sand. Obama drew it, and then he refused to honor what he did. He said, if anybody goes across the red line, and Assad killed many more children after that, and Obama did nothing, but I did. I hit him with a lot of missiles. In fact, President Xi was sitting here the night he was in that dining room having chocolate cake. Remember the famous chocolate cake? But and that's when I explained what we were doing as the missiles were shot. And it was.
I thought it was Abe. Wasn't he having dinner with Abe for the Syrian missile strike? Oh, Trump ordered Syrian airstrike before dinner with Xi. Okay. There was something else. There was something that happened where like it was Abe and Trump having dinner at Mar-A-Lago, and they were unfurling like maps, and there was some kind of military strike that was being discussed like right there in Mar-A-Lago and it was like a highly classified situation, and there were people just like walking around taking pictures of the You guys remember what I'm talking? This was like early on in Trump's presidency the first time around.
Amazing as to precision, because every one of those missiles hit its target from a long distance away. Had President Obama drawn the line and where it meant something, you wouldn't have even had Russia there. But in the end, I never understood why Russia went there. They were not getting very much out of it.
He's not wrong that Obama showed weakness in Syria. Like, there's no point in declaring a red line if you're not going to follow through. Like, it was bullshit.
But now their time is taken up with Ukraine, and we'd like to get them to stop on Ukraine, and Ukraine stop also. As you know, when I went to the cathedral, which was fantastic, the job that they've done in France, and the job that Macron, Emmanuel did a phenomenal job on the rebuilding of that cathedral. It's magnificent, and they did a great thing. And they had great respect for our country. They treated me, meaning I'm the country, I'm the representative of our country. And we were treated with great respect. And one of the people that came to pay his respects is, as you know,
something profoundly upsetting about him saying, I am the country.
No, Ukraine, Zelensky. And he would like to have peace. He wants peace. Everyone's being killed. It's the worst carnage that this world has seen since World War II. I've had pictures of fields where bodies are lying on top of bodies. Looks like the old pictures of the Civil War, where just bodies are all over. Just if you saw those pictures, you'd feel more strongly about it. It's got to stop. And we're trying to get it to stop. Well, we're gonna see. We're gonna be talking. We'll be talking to President Putin, and we'll be talking to the representatives, Zelensky, and representatives from Ukraine. We got to stop it. It's carnage.
What about the fear here at home of the drones?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster.
Will you
Want to
shoot
know
them
the
down?
truth.
Wow.
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment on that.
Have you been
Do you have any
regular
reason to think
intelligence
they're a
briefings?
threat?
Two quick questions. First, on vaccines, do you want RFK Jr. to revoke any vaccines?
No, I want him to come back with a report as to what he thinks. We're going to find out a lot. We're doing two things. We're going to have tremendous cost savings that will come out of this. That's a minimum. And we're also going to have, and I think, very serious discussions about certain things, whether it's pesticides.
I got a buddy who works for hospice, and he's really excited about RFK because he alleges that in California, there's massive fraud going on. I didn't realize this, but did you guys know that hospice is a for-profit company? Like, for some reason, I thought it was ran by the church. I thought it was like a free service, which in retrospect seems quite naive and silly when I think about it. Yeah, I had no idea. But yeah, my buddy in hospice, he alleges that in California, there's massive fraud going on in hospice services. Like, anybody can just start a hospice. And so he's excited for RFK, not because of the anti-vax stuff, but because he thinks, or no, that wouldn't be RFK. He was talking about Oz. He was excited about Dr. Oz, because I guess Oz is going to be in charge of dispersing Medicare funds and trying to identify fraud and waste and stuff like that. But yeah, anyways.
You know, Europe doesn't use pesticides, and yet they have a better mortality rate than we do. They don't use pesticides. In fact, they use it as an excuse not to take our farm product. We spend billions and billions of dollars on pesticides, and something bad's happening. Again, you take a look at autism today versus 20, 25 years ago. It's like not even believable. So we're going to have reports. No, nothing's going to happen very quickly. I think you're going to find that Bobby he's a very rational guy. I found him to be very rational. No, nothing, you're not.
He literally said there's no such thing as a safe vaccine. Like, it's on camera. He said it in front of a camera, into a camera. He said it. There's video of him saying this. There's no such thing as a healthy vaccine or a safe vaccine.
Going to lose the polio vaccine. That's not going to happen. I saw what happened with the polio. I have friends that were very much affected by that. I have friends from many years ago, and they have obviously they're still in not such good shape because of it. No, that was, and many people died. And the moment they took that vaccine, it ended. Dr. Jonas Salk did a great job. So I don't anticipate that at all. But we're going to look into finding why is
this is what I mean when I say that I feel like RFK is going to be the first casualty of this administration, because RFK can't put a lid on this stuff that he says. Like, he's going to do some podcast or give some interview. He's going to talk shit about the polio vaccine again, and Trump's just going to reach a point at some point. I give it 9 months max, but good money, I would say, like by 6 months into the administration, I feel like he's going to call Bobby and be like, "Hey, listen, you got to go. I can't be dealing with this shit."
The autism rate's so much higher than it was 20, 25, 30 years ago. I mean, it's 100 times higher. There's something wrong, and we're going to try finding that. We're also going to find out, why are we paying more than other countries? And we were in the process of doing that through transparency and other things. We were doing a good job in that first term, and we brought it down. We got the $35, all of the different things. We got, we were the ones that got all of that done. Every
yeah, Trump for sure knows RFK is a little wacky. He made a bargain with him during the election. Honestly, that bargain might have proved decisive. I really don't know. Actually, yeah. Why don't we talk about that? Like, was the RFK endorsement the thing that got him over the finish line? Maybe. Like, that's definitely possible. It wasn't like a full split in terms of the people that supported RFK Jr. It wasn't like 100% of them went on to support Donald Trump. I think it was more like 60-40 or 65-35, something like that. But when the margins were so slim, I mean, I think as of now, it's like 120,000 votes across 3 states. 3 states, I believe, is what the latest shows. I don't know.
One of those things we got them done. I said, I hope I win because otherwise somebody's going to take a lot of credit for what we did. But now what happens is we're gonna have a big conversation on price. Why is it that Germany and UK and other countries are paying so much more for the same box of medicine made in the same plant? Why is it that we're paying many times more? And I know the answer because our government didn't do what they were supposed to do. And what I put in place was terminated unexpectedly by the Biden administration, and they shouldn't have terminated it. It would have had a huge impact.
And Mr. President, one quick question. On Ukraine, you mentioned that some of the areas are already decimated. Do you believe that Ukraine should cede territory to Russia?
Of course.
Well, I'm going to let you know that after I have my first meeting.
Well, the answer is yes, of course. I don't know what else could the answer be, right?
But a lot of that territory, when you look at what's happened to those, I mean, there are cities that there's not a building standing. It's a demolition site. There's not a building standing. So people can't go back to those cities. There's nothing there. It's just rubble. Just like when I knocked down a building in Manhattan, which is actually, this is worse, actually, because we do it step by step. This thing has just got demolished. And by the way, in those buildings are many people. Many people were in those buildings. When they said the number in Ukraine is going to be a much higher number of death, is going to be a much higher number than you're hearing. They're big buildings. That's what I did very well. And these are very long buildings. They're 15 to 20 stories high. They're massive buildings. I was surprised at how big. And they're flattened like a pancake. 1 or 2 bombs hit them and they just collapsed. And they'd say, nobody was hurt. Well, nobody knows who was in those buildings. There were a lot of people in those buildings. They're going to find that when they start doing the removal. Many more people are being killed in the Ukraine war with Russia than is being reported, and that includes soldiers. The soldiers are being, it's a carnage that we haven't seen since the Second World War. It's got to be stopped, and I'm doing my best to stop it. Yeah, please.
Yes, the answer to that is yes. Yes, the expectation is that Ukraine will have to cede territories to Russia. That's of course what he means.
You had a meeting with Mrs. Abe yesterday, but Japanese Prime Minister Mrs. Abe, yeah, and Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba is hoping to have a meeting anytime soon.
I will do that. In fact, I sent him a memento. I sent him a book, the Prime Minister. But Mrs. Abe was very close with our First Lady, with Melania, and she loved Melania's book. And she called and wanted to know if she could have. I was very close to the Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe. He was great. He was a great man. And his wife wanted to know if it would be possible to have dinner. And it was just out of respect to Shinzo. And yes, I'd love to see the Prime Minister, and we will do that. I actually sent him a book and some other things for him through Mrs. Abe.
Will that happen before the inauguration day?
It could. If they'd like to do that, I would do that, yeah.
Sir, President Trump, just have you
I have great respect for the position, and if he'd like to do that, I'd be here.
Mr. President, you have the border that Ambassador to Japan will be George Glass. Is that your final decision?
Highly respected man. That's right. Highly respected. He's been an ambassador before. Did a fantastic job. We consider Japan very important. He's very highly respected. Okay, couple of
Which other world leaders have you invited to the inauguration? Which other world leaders have you invited to the inauguration?
The world leaders are calling me, and some really would like to meet. No, I mean literally, they're calling me, and I'll be seeing some of them. I think it's rude not to. I mean, it's hard to say I'm not going to see you. And I've spoken to way over 100 where they called to congratulate on not only the election, but the size of the election, the extent of victory. And they were great. I mean, I spoke to over 100 countries. You wouldn't believe how many countries there are. And I'm trying the best I can to get back to everybody, but there are a lot of countries, and every one of them, literally everyone called, and it was very nice. So, yeah, I'd see some if some felt it was an emergency. I've seen, as you know, I've seen presidents who came to France while I was there for the
What a weird thing to say. You wouldn't believe how many countries there are. Well, you could just Google it, right?
Real opening. They actually had about 70 presidents and prime ministers, and in one case, a king.
Shooting occurred at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, leading to multiple injuries and at least 2 fatalities. The shooter has died, with reports indicating self-inflicted gunshot. The incident took place on December 16th. Students from kindergarten through 12th grade attend the school. School has about 400 students, multiple injuries. Man, I don't know, man. I'm so jaded in the United States. Like, there was a time like, I remember when Columbine happened. That was a front page story for, I mean, felt like months, felt like 1 month, 2 months, just constant coverage, diving into the shooter's background, diving into the parents, the surveillance footage from the school, and it drove the news cycle for just so long. And now in America, it's like you hear a school shooting and it's like, well, yeah, sounds about right. I'm so desensitized to it at this point.
We saw some great people. I also met with William, and I was very impressed by William. I think William is terrific. I was very impressed by William. As you know, I met with him too.
Are you just
President Trump,
Did you invite Zelensky to the inauguration?
No, but if he'd like to come, I'd like to have him. I mean, I didn't invite him, no.
Are you
President
disappointed
Trump,
China's
can I ask you a
Xi
question
can't
about
come to the inauguration? Are you disappointed that China's Xi won't be at the inauguration?
I don't know that he won't be at the inauguration. I mean, I haven't really spoken to him about it. I don't know that, actually. I would say that if he'd like to come, I'd love to have him. But there's been nothing much discussed. I have had discussions with him, letters, et cetera, at a very high level. We had a very good relationship until COVID. COVID didn't end the relationship, but it was a bridge too far for me. But if he'd like to come, I'd certainly be. He hasn't, just so you understand, he hasn't said one way or the other. Because a lot of people say he won't come, he will come. People think he will come, he won't come. It's something we barely discussed, just about didn't discuss. But I have had, especially through letters, some very good conversations.
Have you had conversations with Venezuela?
Because China and the United States can together.
From 3 days ago, China's Xi is likely to decline Trump's inauguration invitation, seeing it as too risky to attend. Chinese leader Xi Jinping would likely see President-elect Donald Trump's invitation to attend his inauguration as too risky to accept. And the gesture from Trump may have little bearing on the increasingly competitive ties between the two nations as the White House changes hands. Can you imagine Xi Jinping sitting outdoors in Washington, D.C. in January at the feet of the podium, surrounded by hawkish members of Congress, gazing up at Donald Trump as he delivers his inaugural address? Says Danny Russell, who previously served as Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs. Russell, now Vice President for the International Security and Diplomacy at the Asia Society Policy Institute, said Xi would not allow himself to, quote, be reduced to the status of a mere guest celebrating the triumph of a foreign leader, the U.S. president no less, end quote.
If you think about it. So it's very important. And, he was a friend of mine. I mean, he was here for a long time, right in that spot, except sitting in a very comfortable chair. He wasn't standing like you are. But we spent hours and hours talking. And, he's an amazing guy.
Have you spoken to Venezuela?
The press hates when I say that, but he's an amazing person.
Have you spoken to anyone in Venezuela, sir? On the border. On the border. If I could just ask you on the border. Hold on one second, Gary. Real quick.
The United Healthcare shooting, the shooting of the CEO. In your, can you give us your thoughts about that? And what do you make of the reaction around the suspected shooter? Does that tell you anything about how people
I think it's a
healthcare?
terrible thing. I think it's really terrible that some people seem to admire him, like him.
And just an update, we discussed it yesterday, but the polling came out. There was polling that came out a few days ago, and the amount of people in this country that just openly support Joey Mangione, I think it's, or Luigi Mangione, is that his, what is his actual name? Is it Luigi? The amount of people in the country that support him is actually very, 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 very low. It's like 10 to 15%. And then there's like 20 to 30% that are undecided, and then the rest are, they don't approve of what he did. And so as popular as he is, as much of a folk hero as he's becoming on the internet, that's not indicative of broad sentiment about him.
And I was happy to see that it wasn't specific to this gentleman that was killed. It's just an overall sickness as opposed to a specific sickness. That was a terrible thing. It was cold-blooded, just a cold-blooded, horrible killing. And how people can like this guy is... that's a sickness, actually. That's really very bad, especially the way it was done. It was so bad, right in the back. And very bad, thing like that, you can't believe that some people, and maybe it's fake news, I don't know. It's hard to believe that that can even be thought of, but It seems that there's a certain
Oh God, please don't do that. It's going to cause so many conspiracy theories.
appetite for him. I don't get it. Yeah, please.
I don't even know what that means. Like the video was faked or what? Like what the f- does that even mean?
Could you just come in on, I want to expand on the defamation lawsuits. Could you see moving that to other people with individual platforms, social media influence?
So ABC News settled, I think, for $15 million a defamation suit Trump filed against them for comments that George Stephanopoulos made, I think around April of this year, where he described Trump as Trump's defamation case with E. Jean Carroll as a jury found him liable of, which was technically not true because of the limited definition of what that word means. But then the judge later went on to clarify, for all intents and purposes, the jury did find him liable for. And so ABC, people are reporting ABC had a very strong basis to contend this case, to fight this case in court. And the fact that they settled, some people are taking that as an indication that it's ABC trying to, keep that bridge open, trying to maintain some access. And so there's been some controversy around that. That seems likely to be the case because, again, if the judge came out and said, yeah, the jury did essentially find him liable, I don't know why they wouldn't have fought that in court. That just seems like it would be so difficult to establish malicious defamation for what George Stephanopoulos said. And so, I tend to agree that it seems like ABC is just trying not to pick this, knockdown, drag out fight with the president because they want somebody in the press corps in DC that represents their agents or their, that company. And it just seems so. But yeah, whatever. That's what that is all about.
Influencers, people that
or newspapers, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. I think you have to do it because they're very dishonest. We need a great media. We need a fair media. We need, it's very important. And we need borders. We need walls, but we need borders and we need fair elections. You look at California, millions and millions of ballots.
Cenk says, no, it's not true in general. Stop trying to twist it. I mean, listen, this is what the judge said, right? So judge in E. Jean Carroll case. Federal Judge Lewis Kaplan ruled in August that the jury verdict showed Carroll's allegation was substantially true. That's what the judge said. You can call that cope in my chat, but that's what the judge said.
Ballots were sent out. They're still counting the vote in California. With the machines, they're counting the vote. If you had paper ballots, the votes would have been counted 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Now, you need fair elections, you need borders, and you need a fair press. And the press is, no, I see others. I have a few others that I'm doing. I'm going to, as an example, I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me, and I loved...
Cenk, I'm so curious. If over 24 women came forward and accused Joe Biden of a range of sexual assault, would you believe them? Like what number would it have to get to for you to say maybe Trump is a little bit of a sex pest? Like the fact that Trump came out and said straight up like, oh yeah, if when you're famous they just let you do whatever. Like I don't know why people are so, like Trump supporters are so incredulous. I wish you would just be honest with yourself and just say like, yeah, he was bad with women, but I don't care about that. I think he's a strong leader. Like at least like. I can at least respect that on principle, right? Because you're just owning it. But this whole like idea like, oh, Trump, he would never do something like that. I don't understand your thought process, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
The farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4. Or whatever the number was, way up.
He's not remembering this right. And Selzer had Kamala up by 3 points in that poll, which was what made it so insane.
Way up, easy win. We never even thought to go there. I respect them, I love them, and they understand there's no reason to go there because she brought it from way up, walk away, which it was, and it turned out to be in the election too, by the way. It was a win by many, many points. And then she brought it down very smartly to 4 a couple of weeks before. And everyone said, wow, that's amazing. He's only up by 4 points.
He's just not, it wasn't him up. It was Kamala up by, I think, 3 in that poll.
Then she brought it down to where it was down by 3 or 4, whatever number she used. And that was the Des Moines Register. And it was their parent. And in my opinion, it was fraud and it was election interference. You know, she's gotten me right always. She's a very good pollster. She knows what she was doing. And she then quit before. And we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow. We're filing one.
You're going to file a lawsuit against the Des Moines Register for a negative poll? Guys, where are all the Trump, like, First Amendment supporters, right? Like, where the f are they? How could you defend this? How can you say that you're anti-censorship, that you're pro-First Amendment? How could you square that with Trump threatening to sue the Des Moines Register for a negative poll, where the methodology and all the data, the underlying data, is public? Anybody can look it up. Anybody can look at the crosstabs. Like, how could you support that? Do I have any Trump supporters in chat that are like, yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. He should do that. He should sue a newspaper for a bad poll.
One on 60 Minutes, you know about that, where they took Kamala's answer, which was a crazy answer, a horrible answer, and they took the whole answer out and they replaced it with something else she said later on in the end.
This is a complete lie. 60 Minutes came out and clarified that. So there was a preview for the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. And in that preview, they showed the interviewer asking her a question about Israel, and they showed one answer in the preview, and then they showed a much more concise answer in the actual interview. It's common practice for 60 Minutes to trim down an answer. So if they get an answer and they want to fit a certain amount of content into a certain time frame for that interview, they will, like, cut answers short. And so it was all one answer that she gave, and they cut one part of the answer for the preview, and they cut a more succinct answer for the actual 60 Minutes. This idea that they used an answer from a different question to make her look better makes no sense. Like, the answer that she gave would not apply to any other question. It's just a stupid accusation on its face. But the MAGA world are just completely convinced that, 60 Minutes was in the tank for Kamala, and, they edited the answer to make her look smart. Then why would you how does that make any sense? Because, like, why would you release the first initial version of that answer in the preview? If you're trying to protect her, if you're trying to make her look like smarter or whatever, then why would you put it in the preview? It doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid thing on its face.
Interview, which wasn't a great answer, but it wasn't like the first one. The first was grossly incompetent. It was weird.
Both answers were fine. Like, they were fine. It wasn't word salad. It was just like a milquetoast answer that she gave. There was nothing controversial about it.
Fraud and election interference by their news magazine, a big part of CBS News. So, as you know, we're involved in that one. We're involved in one which has been going on for a while and very successfully against Bob Woodward, where he didn't quote me properly from the tapes. And then on top of everything else, he sold the tapes, which he wasn't allowed to do. He could only use them for reporting purposes, not for sale purposes. And he admits that. And I think we'll be successful on that one. And we have one very interestingly on Pulitzer, because reporters at the New York Times, Washington Post got Pulitzer Prizes for their wonderful, accurate, and highly professional reporting on the Russia hoax. Well, it turned out to be a hoax, and they were exactly...
Wait, he's suing Pulitzer for giving New York Times a Pulitzer? Am I hearing this right?
Wrong. People, like many people, John Solomon, Sean Hannity's not for Pulitzer, but Sean Hannity got it right. Many people got it right. Tucker got it right. Jesse got it right. Laura got it right. Janine got it right. A lot of people got it right. They didn't get anything. They gave it to reporters that got it absolutely wrong. And now everybody admits it was a hoax. And I want them to take back the Pulitzer Prizes and pay big damages. And I think we're doing very well on that one. They have no excuse for it. They gave a Pulitzer Prize to writers that got Russia wrong. And so I think we're doing well. And I feel I have to do this. I shouldn't really be the one to do it. It should have been Justice Department or somebody else. But I have to do it.
I mean, this is chilling, man. This is chilling. You're talking about the leader of a country that is, you know, lamenting the fact that his own Department of Justice didn't go after journalists. And now he's making it his pet project to sue multiple journalists for coverage that he deems to be, you know, negative. I don't know how you could defend this as like a MAGA person. Well, you can't, defamation's not legal, bro. Like, do you see what's happening? Do you understand? Suing multiple journalists for running stories on you? You don't think that this is an issue?
It costs a lot of money to do it, but we have to straighten out the press. Our press is very corrupt, almost as corrupt as our elections.
Are you worried about Venezuela? Sir, have you had any discussions with Venezuela?
For January 6th defendants, you had said in the first few minutes of your administration you want to issue pardons for January 6th defendants. Does that include, will that be a blanket pardon? Does that include
Well, you'll find
everyone?
out, but it's going to go quickly.
And just to follow up on your
Have you had any discussions, sir, with in terms of your mass deportation plans, have you had any preliminary discussions with countries like Venezuela, from where the Tren de Aragua gang is now popping up?
They'll
across the
take them
country?
back.
They're going to take them back.
They're all taking them back, yep. And if they don't, they'll be met very harshly economically. Okay, they'll all take them back. You know, Venezuela and other countries were not behaving very well with us during my administration, and within 24 hours they were behaving very well. They'll all take them back.
And separately, can I ask a follow-up
Jeff,
on that?
nice to see you, Jeff. This is like the old days, right?
Nice to see you too.
You've you look much better now than you did 4 years ago. What are you doing? What's he doing? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. The first day you just mentioned that you're in office, I imagine you've got some executive orders that you're going to go through. Can you tell us what
We'll have a lot. Well,
what are your priorities?
I'll bet you could tell. You could say as well as I could. We will have many executive orders and other things that we'll be signing on the first day.
Can you also, just going back to my initial question about the Middle East, you said that your conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu was kind of a review. Did you repeat
We
that
just had a
threat?
very good conversation. And, you know, the real conversations will start on the 20th. But we had a really good conversation, and I think we're going to be in a good place in the Middle East. I think the Middle East will be in a good place. I think actually more difficult is going to be the Russia-Ukraine situation. I see that as more difficult.
When you say there will be
I don't think they should have allowed missiles to be shot 200 miles into Russia. I think that was a bad thing.
Did you tell Russia to not invade their neighboring country? Did you, I mean, like, if you don't want missiles fired into your country, maybe don't invade your neighbor. Like,
And
you know,
that brought the Koreans in, you know, North Korea, another man I get along with very well. I'm the only one that does. But that did a lot of bad things. I don't think that should have been allowed. Not when there's a possibility, and certainly not just weeks before I take over. Why would they do that without asking me what I thought? I wouldn't have had them
you're not the president. It's not up to you.
do that. I think that was a big mistake.
You will be the president on January 20th, and then you can decide these things. But it's not up to you. You don't get to decide. There's still a month and a half left here.
Will you reverse that decision when you're in office to let those
I might, yeah.
missiles be
I thought it
used?
was a very stupid thing to do.
And when you
Do
say
you have any
that-
reaction
just
to
one last one on this, when you say that there will be hell to pay if the hostages are not released before January 20th, what does that mean?
Well, they're going to have to determine what that means. But it means it won't be pleasant.
Mr. President,
It's not,
how was your meeting?
it's not going to be pleasant, yeah?
How was your meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook, and did you talk about tariffs in that meeting?
Meeting with who?
Tim Apple.
CEO Tim Cook.
I did have dinner with Tim Cook. I had dinner with sort of almost all of them, and the rest are coming. And this is one of the big differences, I think, between, we were talking about.
Also, Ukraine doesn't have to listen to any U.S. president to begin with. Well, if Ukraine is relying on the United States for weaponry and training and funds, then yeah, we can put conditions on that aid.
About it before. One of the big differences between the first term, in the first term, everybody was fighting me. In this term, everybody wants to be my friend. I don't know. My personality changed or something, but
we'll see how long that lasts.
As you know, I had Sundar from Google, but I also had Sergey. Nobody reported that. Sergey is the owner, the primary owner, along with his friend, as you know. And Sergey was here also. I can't believe you didn't pick that one up. Nobody picked that up. But I will tell you, no, it's a big difference. The big difference is that the first time everybody was fighting me on all fronts. And we had a great administration. We got the biggest tax cuts in history, rebuilt the military. Too much of it was given away to Afghanistan, stupidly given away, horribly given away. I think that's one of the reasons that Putin went in to Ukraine when he saw the stupidity of Milley and these guys. They're stupid people, very stupid people.
It's so obscene to blame your own generals for Ukraine's belligerence. I'm sorry, for Russia's belligerence in Ukraine. It's so obscene. Jesus Christ. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine very openly because he felt like he had a historical right to that land. He spoke to that in his interview with Tucker Carlson. He was very open about, like, that belongs to us. And I'll go back hundreds of years and talk for 45 minutes about why we have a historical right to just take that land. And here he is blaming Milley. I mean, it's just so obscene, but whatever.
If they didn't do such a bad, we were pulling out of Afghanistan, but I would have pulled out with dignity and strength. They wouldn't be having parades, I guarantee you, showing our equipment that they left behind, because we weren't going to leave any equipment behind.
It wasn't our equipment. It was not our equipment. That equipment belonged to the Afghan government and the Afghan National Army. It was not our equipment.
Not 10 cents. We were going to take every screw and every bolt.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't. That wasn't laid out in your deal, the deal that you negotiated. Nowhere in that deal did we say we were going to take the Afghan National Army's military equipment.
Yeah, the biggest difference is that people want to get along with me this time. Well, they've gone through 4 years, and, it wasn't easy for me, but it wasn't easy for them either. And that's a great thing, though. Getting along is a great thing. So Tim Cook was here. I think he's done an incredible job at Apple, and he talked about the future of Apple. It's going to be a bright future. But we have many others also, and not in that business. And we do have Jeff Bezos, Amazon, coming in sometime during the week. I look forward to that. We have a lot of great executives coming in. The top executives, the top bankers, they're all calling. And honestly, in the first time, I don't know what it was. It's like a complete opposite. In the first one, and the press has covered that fairly, actually, for change. The first one, they were very hostile. And maybe it was my fault, but I don't really think so. They were just very right from the beginning. And this one is much less hostile. It's really the opposite of hostile.
Can I get your reaction?
Well, you're
on
free
Duke
to give
lacrosse,
up a
sir? I know that you had some, I believe, involvement 18 years ago with the students at Duke accused of lacrosse. Now we have this development.
I thought it was a hoax when it happened, the Duke situation. I didn't believe the woman, as you know, and they destroyed the lives of these kids. They destroyed, and I don't care what they got. Their lives have been destroyed. Their lives have been shortened by what took place. And now the woman admitted that it never happened. That is a horrible.
Didn't we already know this? Didn't we already know that this was a hoax? I feel like we already knew this, right? It's been so long since that story.
And as you know, I took a lot of heat when I said that this did not happen. And those kids were beautiful kids with beautiful families, and they were, in some cases, will never be the same. They will never.
I know that she came out, I think last week, and said that she admitted that she lied about it, but I feel like it was already commonly known that it didn't happen.
Never be the same.
Have you talked to them by chance?
Your thoughts on the Postal Service? You mentioned Bezos a second ago, and I've always thought Bezos would be a key person to go in there and really streamline the logistics of the post office, but they lose billions.
Well, there is talk about the Postal Service being taken private. You do know that. Not the worst idea I've ever heard.
One of the worst.
Isn't. It's a lot different today with.
One of the worst. What a terrible idea. When people could complain that the post office takes a loss, it's just so unbelievable to me. That's like complaining that roads, building roads, takes a loss. You know what I mean? It's a public service. It's like one of the only federal public services that has overwhelming public support. The idea of taking it private. All right, I guess we're just paying for regular mail now, right?
Between Amazon and UPS and FedEx and all the things that you didn't have. But there is talk about that. It's an idea that a lot of people have liked for a long time. We're looking at it. I think we're looking at that along with a lot of us. Any questions for Howard, by the way?
I'm not sure he has authority to just take it private. I mean, I feel like that would have to come from Congress, right? That would have to, right?
Commerce.
Sure, I'll ask one. Mr. Incoming Secretary, do you see another trade deal with China coming?
I think the president, yeah, well, it's easy for me. You're sitting next to me, so it's okay. No, the president has a very clear agenda for tariffs. And I think reciprocity is something that is going to be a key topic for us. How you treat us is how you should expect to be treated.
Would you like to weigh in, sir, on that?
So well, reciprocal. If they tax us, we tax them the same amount. They tax us, forgetting just for a second about the word tariff. They tax us, we tax them. And they tax us, almost in all cases, they're taxing us, and we haven't been taxing them.
Is there a deal already underway? Is there a deal already underway with respect to that?
Let's just say this, we're going to make great deals. And we have all the cards. And until I came along, don't forget, and Howard was going over the numbers with me last night, we took in $600 billion and more in taxes and tariffs from China. No other president took in 10 cents, not 10 cents, not 10 cents. And no, we're going to be doing things. We're going to be treating people very fairly. But the word reciprocal is important because if somebody charges us we don't have to talk about
Also made the cost of dishwashing machines go up 20%, I think, when we looked at it last week.
If India charges us 100%, do we charge them nothing for the same? They send in a bicycle and we send them a bicycle. They charge us 100 and 200. India charges a lot. Brazil charges a lot. If they want to charge us, that's fine, but we're going to charge them the same thing.
What are you worried about, Terry?
The senators, some of them aren't necessarily business people. When I give that to them, they say,
yeah,
sounds fair to me.
It's still unclear to me that Trump knows how tariffs work. Because he sure seems to be talking like they pay the tax, like they pay the tariff. That's what he seems to be implying. I really don't know if he knows how tariffs work. I really don't know.
Are you concerned that tariffs might hurt the stock market, rise to exceed the economy more broadly?
Make our country rich. Tariffs will make our country rich.
But won't they raise prices?
Properly used. Well, I didn't have any inflation, and I had massive tariffs on a lot of things. We put tariffs on steel. If I didn't put tariffs on steel 50% and more, they were dumping steel in, China and others. I put tariffs on, and it stopped, and we took a fortune. We made a fortune on it. Tariffs, properly used, which we will do. And being reciprocal with other nations, but it'll make our country rich. Our country right now loses to everybody. Almost nobody do we have surplus with. There are a couple of countries, and they're embarrassed by it, but almost nobody. And tariffs will make, I always said to me, tariffs is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. It'll make our country rich. You go back and look at the 1890s, 1880s, McKinley, and you take a look at tariffs, that was when we were at our proportionately the richest.
What should Zelensky, if anything, be prepared to give up to?
We should be prepared to make a deal. That's all. Gotta be a deal. No, gotta be a deal. Too many people being killed. That is a war. That's too many people. Gotta make a deal. And Putin has to make a deal. Putin has to make a deal. And Putin would have never gone in if I was president. If I was president, we wouldn't have had inflation. Our oil prices would have been lower. I had a good relationship with Putin, despite the Russia hoax, which made it more difficult. If we had that election, if it were an honorable election, we wouldn't have had any of the problems that we're talking about right now. Putin would have never gone in.
You said that you can make that deal before you take office. Do you still think you can make that deal?
I'm going to try.
Will you ask Putin to give up Assad?
Well, I haven't thought of it. I think we have to get on with our lives. We'll have to see what happens. But right now, Syria has a lot of, there are a lot of indefinites. Nobody knows what's going to happen with Syria. But I think Turkey is going to hold the key to Syria, actually. I don't think you've heard that from anybody else, but I've been pretty good at predicting. I want to thank you all, and we're going to make America great again.
All right, that covers that.